Wow, these are some pretty fun 2D platforms. Whoa! It's Duke Nukem, but 3D! Duke Nukem 3D was built in the Build engine, stuffed to the gills with features to bring worlds to life. Never before had people been immersed in a first-person space with this level of interactivity and detail. Not to mention the fast-paced, arcadey action and the attitude. There was gore, humor, and titties.
Shake it, baby. Shake it, baby. You wanna dance?
Duke owns this strip club, by the way. These are his employees. He's just tipping them on the side. With one entry, 3D Realms had taken their little series of platformers and created an instant icon of 90s gaming. Duke was a pastiche, a loving homage to the 80s action movies the developers had grown up on. There's a subtle balance to his character. He's got a big ego, a low intellect, and a high competence. The humor comes from the disparity between these, and the cool factor comes from these. Of course, his performance by the lovely John St. John helps.
Don't have time to play with myself. Damn, I'm looking good. Holy shit.
I'm with Duke. How did you get here? 3D Realms was positioning Duke to be the next big thing, taking direct shots at their competitors, id Software.
I ain't afraid of no Quake.
And the general audience was all for it. Not to worry, because the executive producer, George Broussard, has already, circa 1997, announced a sequel, Duke Nukem Forever. And it's gonna be in the Quake 2 engine. Oh, what's that? The Quake 2 engine's not done? Well, they'll start in the Quake 1 engine, and then they'll port it up when the next one's ready. Surely they'll be compatible. In the meantime, I can get my Duke fix with all the spin-offs coming out, starting with Duke Nukem Time to Kill in 1998. Whoa, a Patreon? Did you guys see that? Anyway, Time to Kill opens with a wonderful late 90s FMV intro set to The Thing I Hate by industrial alt-rock band Stabbing Westward. I won't become the thing I hate. I won't become the thing I hate. I won't become the thing I hate. That's right, the aliens from 3D are back, but this time they've got a new plan that you need to read the manual to learn about. Having been defeated by Duke once already, they're gonna go back in time to alter human history and stop him before he's even born. Naturally, Duke's going in after them.
Looks like it's time to kill.
The game opens in modern-day LA, but before I can fight pig cops, I've got to fight the controls. Time to Kill takes the camera out of Duke's head into the third-person shooter realm. Remember, you're playing this with a PS1 controller. No analog sticks, D-pad only, so Duke moves like a tank. There are strafe buttons, but they're quite slow. You won't be running circles around enemies in this game. Most things here are lethargic. Moving, jumping, shooting. In Duke 3D, the shotgun is a rapid response tool. Click, and bam, with the delay being on the back end. In Time to Kill, you see an enemy, press the button, and Duke has to swing the shotgun into position. By the time you've gotten a shell off, the hit scanner has already beaten you to the punch. Halfway through the level, I realized that this isn't a flaw with the game so much as it was a flaw with my expectations, because as I delved into the sewers, mantling ledges and swimming through gunk, it dawned on me, quite violently, hang on, this is a Tomb Raider game. Yeah, that's not a novel observation either. Time to Kill was developed by N-Space, a studio which at the time had only 2 games under its belt. In the March 1998 issue of GamePro magazine, N-Space's executive producer, Eric Dyke, explained, quote, I got a call from Ron Chamowitz, president of GT Interactive, and a very simple question was presented to me. What would I do with Duke Nukem if I could make a brand new game? The first thing that popped out of my mouth was Duke Raider. yeah, suddenly these weird ads with Duke and Lara from the 90s make more sense. I don't know why, I don't know how, but you know what? It's okay. Once you acclimate to the more deliberate pace, you'll find that Time to Kill has a pretty robust set of movement options. There's crouching, jumping, grabbing, climbing, mantling, pushing, pulling, swimming. These mechanics open up the whole environment to you, and it complements the game's focus on exploration, with about 40% combat on the side. The other thing you'll need to get used to is the sheer length of these levels. In just the first one, I started above ground, visited the strip club, found a dominatrix, went to the subway, did a little puzzle down there, now I'm in the sewers and I bust my ass through a bunch of corridors past a machine gun turret to find an energy crystal.
Interesting crystal. I better hang on to it.
Back near the sewer entrance, I find the alien time machine, plug the crystal in, and I need 2 more. Time to explore. I was flummoxed by how many little hallways and passages I missed. This place is complex. A lot of levels feel like this. You're in a good flow, pressing ahead, killing pig cops and aliens, platforming and exploring. Then, just when you've had your fill, oops, you need 2 more keys to finish the level. Maybe my brain has been pan-fried by attention span killers like the AP News app, but I found myself getting a bit fatigued playing this game. To break up the monotony, there's quite a bit of visual variety. This is a time-hopping adventure that takes Duke from the streets of modern LA to the dusty old West, then a post-apocalyptic future and medieval castles. His outfit changes to fit the theme of each period, as do the enemies, which is pretty fun. You've seen pig cops, how about pig sheriffs? I like the little details they bothered to include, like enemies staggering and falling down when you kill them near ledges. It wouldn't be a Duke game without interactive elements. Of course, you can refill some health at the vending machine, and, quite humorously, the neighboring cigarette machine deals 1 point of damage. The frequency of these moments falls off as the levels go into more utilitarian spaces like caves and mazes, but I appreciate that they're there in the first place. The return to LA is also a neat moment. It's just a slightly altered version of the first level, but the dark sky, the lack of music, and the evil robot patrolling the streets does a lot to establish the tone shift. Strip club's still open though. Forget about the boys in blue. Let's give it up for our girls in... not very much. The arsenal is pretty standard fare coming off of Duke 3D. You've got the classic Desert Eagle, shotgun, minigun, and a rocket launcher, but there's a number of themed weapons for each time period, like a buffalo rifle, throwing knives, and a crossbow. These tend to just be slight variants of other weapons, but they give each time period its own distinct flavor, and it's fun to see Duke wielding medieval weaponry. The music is pretty minimal. Duke 3D's soundtrack was based on a lot of MIDI guitar, bass, and grimy synths. There's often a really snappy snare or a hi-hat, clearly inspired by rock and metal of the 80s and 90s. Time to Kill, by contrast, goes for atmosphere more often than not, with less energy to match the exploratory gameplay. The amped up tunes would probably feel weird while you're spending 15 seconds lining up a jump. I'm not the biggest fan of this style, but as long as the game keeps a 60-40 split between exploration and combat, there's actually something pretty fun here. The game's got a lot of meat, 15 levels and 6 bonus challenge stages, plus it keeps the spirit of the character intact. Definitely worth a look.
I'm gonna get medieval on your asses.
Hey, how's Forever coming along?
I was born to rock the world.
Oh sweet, there's a trailer at E3 1998. Look at this, Duke's in full 3D. Man, that Quake 2 engine is crazy. Check out the physics, the lighting. Oh, this is gonna be so awesome. And it's coming out in like a year. They said so. Oh, what's that? George Broussard didn't like where progress was, so they're switching engines? Again? To Unreal? Okay. Well, I trust them. I mean, they said there won't be a significant delay. And I mean, come on, how much work do you really have to do to rebuild a game from scratch in a completely new engine? It's probably like a weekend project. Well, in the meantime, I've got Duke Nukem 0 Hour. The first thing that struck me about 0 Hour was its cover of Grabbag, the classic theme from 3D. You can hear the landscape of American music changing. Instead of those hard rock roots, this version has a grittier industrial vibe with more high-strung riffs and acid influences. You can tell 3D was developed in the first half of the 90s and 0 Hour on the tip of the new millennium, just by the sound. The plot of this game is that the aliens are back, but this time they've got a new plan: to go back in time and change history, so Duke is never born. Hey, is this sounding familiar? Almost like we traveled back in time to about 10 minutes ago. Okay, I did some digging, and apparently I'm the only person in the world who thinks it's weird that there were 2 Duke Nukem games released a year apart where Duke has to travel through time to stop aliens by going to the present day, apocalyptic future, and the Old West. And they aren't ports, they're completely different games, which, as far as I can tell, had none of the same staff. Why did this happen? The best I can scrounge up are some claims online by random forumites that one of the conditions for getting the Duke license was that they had to be time travel stories. And both teams came up with the same plot and many of the same locations. Like, the first Apocalypse level is also a revisit of the first modern day level. They had the same idea. I felt like a crazy person trying to research this because I am apparently the first person on the internet to question this. Anyway, that's about the last thing that these games have in common, because 0 Hour is a much more traditional shooter. You can tell from the movement and camera controls that Eurocom wanted this to be a third-person take on a game like Duke 3D. I'll give a quick disclaimer. I did play the first level with the original control scheme, and it was fine. But I had a devious idea. Thanks to the Build Engine Aesthetics Twitter account, I was able to get mouse and keyboard controls working in an emulator, and oh man, that was the right decision. This game plays amazingly with mouse look. The auto-aim helps, just like in Time to Kill, but it is fluid and kinetic. You can actually strafe, the weapons are snappy, and the level design hits those great notes from 3D, where the arenas are just evocative enough of real places to feel like you're having a shootout in, say, a mall. This game is also the first to bring back the captured babes from 3D, except here you can save them for completionism and ego-stroking purposes.
I'll thank you later, big guy.
It's one of those mechanics that feels like it was supposed to be in 3D, but they might have just run out of time to implement it. At least here they can't die and punish you with enemy spawns. Oh, sorry ma'am.
What a hero!
Damn straight, never did anything wrong. If there's one letdown here, it's the interactivity. My litmus test is whether or not you can use a payphone. You cannot. A bigger problem is the total lack of checkpoints. If you die, you restart from the beginning of the level. Full disclosure, I did not play this game all the way through for the video, so I can't say for sure, but I can see this getting very grating later on if the levels get longer. All I can say is, if you're playing on an emulator, save states are your friend. To reiterate, this game isn't a copy of Time to Kill, which makes it almost stranger. You actually go to the future right after the present, and the mood is great. Suddenly, New York is this cold, blue hellscape crawling with zombies and Planet of the Apes references.
Damn you all.
The snow goes up to your knees, but it won't stop you from drinking from the hydrant like a dog. There's no music at all here. It sells the creepy, desolate vibe. Later levels see Duke heading to Victorian England with a boss fight against Jack the Ripper.
What the hell was that? Well, who better to rip a new one?
It gets pretty wacky, not to mention there's some good John St. John lines.
Damn it, what have these guys got against my rides? Looks like I'm walking.
I don't have a ton of unique observations to make about Zero Hour. It's just a really good third-person shooter, easily the closest we'd get to a Duke 3D follow-up. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? It's 1999, and Forever is almost done. I mean, yeah, they switched to the Unreal Tournament engine, but that's just, like, an upgrade. It'll be out soon. George Broussard said it wasn't even a big deal. In the meantime, N-Space would gift us with their next game, Land of the Babes. Much like Time to Kill, Land of the Babes opens with a slick FMV music video setting up the game's plot. And it is a whole video for Push It by Static X. It's like 3 minutes long. This is yet another time travel plot, but not much of a tour. In the future, aliens invade the Earth, kill every man, and enslave the remaining female population. Duke is transported through time by the Unified Babe Resistance to help them overcome the extraterrestrial menace. It's a really goofy setup that touches on another kind of underrated influence on Duke Nukem, classic sci-fi movies. The original game has an entire act dedicated to time travel. The sequel takes place on an alien planet, and Duke 3D goes to the moon. You can easily say they were sending up aliens with that last one, but the silly time travel shenanigans in alternate futures with scantily clad women are very reminiscent of 50s sci-fi schlock. I should know, I own them. Land of the Babes is another Duke Raider style game, but I'm not as hot on it as Time to Kill. It's hard to put my finger on, but the balance of exploration to combat is just slightly off, and sometimes just bad. Take the first level, which goes pretty smoothly until you get the key card and turn on the generator. You'd think that now would be the time to backtrack to the elevator, except, I ran around this area for 15 minutes before finally looking up what I was supposed to do. Turns out the blood on this grate was supposed to be a hint that there was something up here, and I'm supposed to know I can even climb it in the first place. There's a level later on that takes place in a big open battlefield with hit scanners and a helicopter shooting lasers at you, and man, the game does not do well in situations like this. The worst part of the Duke Raiders is the combat, and this is all combat. It's not built for this. I do like how many friendly NPCs Land of the Babes has. Many of the levels have allies running around actively fighting enemies, which makes things like this battlefield feel more chaotic and lively. Surprisingly, there's a pretty decent water level, helped by the infinite breath and passable swimming controls. I don't like that they're inverted because it makes dropping into water very jarring, but you can get used to it. Fuck these sharks, though. This was the first game to use ego as Duke's health. Instead of med packs and bandages to mend wounds, you pick up things like his biography to boost his ego. Technically, getting shot doesn't hurt him, it just lowers Duke's self-esteem, and conversely, killing enemies raises it. Ego will also be raised by doing things like rescuing babes or completing objectives. I like the idea of the ego system. It's unique, in line with his character, and it reminds me a lot of the way the modern Doom entries reward you with health and ammo for killing enemies, incentivizing you to push forward into combat. It's just that you're playing a game where circle strafing is bad, so it feels more like a consolation when you get some health back. I'm a bit disappointed with Lotba's choice of scenery. It's all post-apocalyptic, and there's very few levels in, say, urban environments or any kind of civilization, really. Most of the game is in military bases, sewers, caves, and science labs. There's little room for silly jokes and background details outside of the aforementioned water level, which, to be fair, has a very cool setting, being a sunken city. That, along with the music being kind of boring, leads to a sort of drab-feeling game. Not terrible, just not my first choice for a Duke Nukem title. Good thing I won't have to wait long for Forever to come out. Check out this crazy trailer from E3 2001. The facial animations, the physics, you could play pinball, and it ends with that classic mantra from 3D Realms. When it's done... Well, it's more of a George Broussard mantra, but hey, it's coming along. In the meantime, I can play Duke Nukem Manhattan Project. Duke returns to PC with this entry by Sunstorm, a studio whose track record at this point was mostly hunting games. The plot of Manhattan Project can be explained thusly.
Fuck New York, this apple ain't so big!
Instead of aliens, this game focuses more on the mutants, led by the evil Morphics, who's contaminated the water supply and turned every sewer animal into monsters. Again, very much a B-movie plot, but the urban setting makes it fit right at home for Duke. This is our first 2D platformer, also harkening back to the original DOS games. And you know what? It plays really well. This might sound odd, but it's a lot like classic Mega Man, just with hit-scan weapons. Duke controls with very little momentum. You can pick a spot within your jump arc and land on it pretty reliably. This lends itself well to precision platforming, and that, combined with a lot of the same athletic skills from the Duke Raider games, like mantling climbing and the new double jump, makes just maneuvering around feel very empowering, which is what I'd want out of a Duke Nukem game. Height is an important factor, not just in said platforming, but also the firefights. You can duck under a lot of guns and even jump on enemy heads Mario style. Shooting is responsive, and the guns have meaningful differences in damage and rate of fire. Enemies have obvious visual distinctions, so you always know how many shots they can take and what they're carrying. Not groundbreaking stuff, but it's nice to see so many of the little details that make something like Duke 3D great, translated into a very different style. Oh, by the way, if you're playing on modern hardware and the double jump doesn't work, switch the renderer to OpenGL. For some reason, the default one does something weird with the frame rate and your inputs, because the double jump actually requires some timing. You need to do it before the apex of your first jump. Enemy placement never feels cheap, and you almost always have enough time to react before they shoot. There's some minor exceptions, like the machine gunners in the Chinatown levels, but you learn to switch to your own machine gun to stun lock them first. This game reuses the ego system from Land of the Babes, and I'd argue it works much better here, in a system where combat is more natural. The fluid movement mechanics also complement the game's greater focus on secrets. The previous spin-offs also had secrets, but something about the side-scrolling levels makes them really satisfying here. I think it's the fact that they're paced pretty well, and they're not so big that by going a little out of your way, you can find them. Each level has a babe to rescue, usually hidden behind some optional key card or destructible wall.
All yours, Duke.
Don't get your panties all in a bunch.
I don't know if it's just that this is like the 6th Duke Nukem game I've played for this video, but Manhattan Project made me realize I don't think there's a single depiction of a woman in these games with a different body type, which suggests that in Duke Nukem's world, all women look like this, and he actually doesn't have any physical preferences. All women are babes, and he loves babes. Much like 0 Hour, you can hear the progression of rock music in Manhattan Project's soundtrack. There's more influences from hip-hop and electronic music. I also picked up on some heavier metal in tracks like the first boss theme. That is, if you can hear it over the explosions that are so loud that this is the first game where I've ever heard the audio levels clip. This boss is cool conceptually, but I got frustrated with how poorly some of its ideas were conveyed. The first phase, it shoots missiles at you. Okay, easy. Second phase, the health bar now represents the pig cops that it drops on you one at a time, except the helicopter's chain gun is pointing at you as well. The bullets are really hard to dodge unless you try to stand at the other end of the screen, and I got Swiss cheesed multiple times before realizing that you can shoot the gun to disable it. Certainly makes the fight easier. Easy enough that it just gets tedious while you're waiting on the enemies to spawn in. Very slowly. The third phase has Duke hanging off the ladder of the helicopter as it flies over the rooftops. The only vulnerable part is the engine at the back, but you can't shoot it? No, instead, the best strategy is to first destroy the minigun, then toss pipe bombs toward the engine, and hope that they're far away enough that you don't get caught in the explosion as well. Also, Morphix pops out every once in a while to do unreactable damage. I can see how this all sounded really cool on paper, but the way you have to fight this helicopter is so different from the rest of the game that I spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out if I even understood how it worked. It then took many attempts to get it right, and having to redo the first two phases over and over again was a bit of a drag. It's a small blemish that sticks out mostly because the rest of the game is so intuitive. I think that's why it bothered me so much. The writing here is also on the slightly edgier side. I think being off home consoles let the artists and writers cut a bit loose.
Mother keycards. Die, bitch.
For some reason, Duke calling a woman, even an evil robot lady, a bitch, feels a little odd to me. There's also this ad in the subway, which might not have aged that well. Alright, for real though, raise your hands. Yeah, I see you. I see the flags in my notifications, don't think I don't know. Manhattan Project is a blast. Definitely worth checking out. There's not actually that many 2D action platformers of this style. I had a lot of fun with it. The perfect game to cap off this long wait for DNF. They had that awesome trailer at E3. Broussard keeps saying it's almost out. Surely, right? How much longer could it take? It's been 10 years since Manhattan Project's release. The US invaded Iraq. Facebook was founded. Hurricane Katrina killed over 1,000 people. There was a global recession, Michael Jackson died, and the Arab Spring began. If you were 11 years old playing Duke Nukem 3D in 1996, you are now 26. You've gone through middle school, high school, college, and are either working on a master's or have been in the workforce for around 3 years. You can legally drink, vote, and have sex. You are probably a completely different person from the child who first tipped those pixel strippers in 1996. And Duke Nukem Forever is finally, for real, coming out. Since 2002, the project had been bleeding developers. Take-Two, the publisher, had to write off $5.5 million in earnings because of the sunk cost, a fact they publicly admitted and which George Broussard responded to by telling them to shut the fuck up and stop saying stupid-ass things in public. They had switched their entire physics engine to one by an obscure company with little documentation. Years passed, with a single screenshot or character model being shared once in a while, until the game was near completion in 2008. Broussard asked Take-Two for $6 million to complete it. They offered less than half of that, probably because they hated him, and the project was suspended. Take-Two sued 3D Realms for failing to complete the game, which involved a restraining order against the company? 3D Realms devs say fuck it and start leaking footage and screenshots because the project is dead in the water. The lawsuit is dismissed by the end of 2010, and 9 employees form a new company, Triptych, to finally, maybe, complete the game with the funding of Gearbox Software. By some miracle, they actually finish the game. And at long last, Duke Nukem Forever is real. After 14 years, it is coming out. But 2 months before that, you get to play Duke Nukem Critical Mass for the DS! From Frontline Studios, the makers of Chicken Shoot, Chicken Blaster, Eminem's Kart Racing, and Hardcore Pool, starring The Stroke,
Cool.
comes Critical Mass. For time reasons, I skipped out on some of the other handheld titles like Advance and Mobile, but rest assured, this is not the first time Duke Nukem has nuked in your hands. This game was part of a planned multi-platform return for the series, a handheld trilogy to follow up on Forever. Its first impression is a little crunchy. Maybe I'm being harsh right out of the gate, but the menus feel like unfinished placeholders. We have yet another time travel plot. Duke's gotta go into the future, again, to rescue a team of Earth Defense Force agents. Immediately, Critical Mass feels terrible. It's clearly based on Manhattan Project, but has none of the polish or thoughtful design that made that game so good. To begin with, even if the control is mostly the same, the animations are so stiff and jarring that just doing stuff feels worse. By far, the biggest problem this game has is the screen size. It is not designed around this crunched view, and enemies shoot you from off screen well before you can see them. You can tilt the camera left and right, so the best way to play is this. Just blind firing into the distance. There's a little bit of depth and moving between multiple layers, like with these alleyways. You can press up to take cover, then aim with the stylus to take out enemies. Now to go collect that armor. Oh, I'm still in cover? No, I can move the camera around. As far as I could tell, this is a soft lock, and I restarted the level. I can't even figure out how to go down these back alleys. There's only so many buttons on the DS, you'd think I could press up, but no, nothing seems to work. There aren't even copies of the manual online to reference. Crazy. I go through this whole level with just the Desert Eagle, and at last find another gun, which I'm expecting to be the shotgun, but instead... oh! An awkward sniper section with no music, and where every enemy is immediately alerted to your location and starts shooting you, and it's super finicky. That's exactly what I wanted. You get the minigun, which should be a cool moment, but it slows you to a crawl. Why does getting a cool weapon make everything feel so bad? I slog through the second level, which is more of the same, until I hit the end, and it's a wall? Maybe I'm dumb, but I combed back through the whole stage over again to make sure I didn't miss anything. And there were a few weapons and pickups, but as far as I can tell, no clues to progress. For any other entry in this video, I probably would have at least checked out a walkthrough, but I'll be real, I just don't want to play this. It's stiff as hell. The enemies all have light speed reactions and shoot you from off screen. It's ugly as sin. There's fall damage. Critical mass? More like critical ass. That's a good one. I'm gonna go to Metacritic and leave that as a review. God damn you, Greg Tommy! You beat me to it! The planned trilogy never happened, for obvious reasons, and this was Frontline's last game. Before this video, I'd only dipped my toes into Duke Nukem 3D, and I didn't know what to expect out of his various spin-offs. To my pleasant surprise, a lot of them are good. My favorites are definitely 0 Hour with the mouse look mod, and Manhattan Project, but the Duke Raiders are worth a look as well. Kind of rare to see One series with so many different takes on gameplay, but most of them worked out. Kind of a shame that Critical Mass was such a sour note to end on, but hey, at the end of the day, at least we got Duke Nukem Forever.
It's a dusty, muddled experience with some decent shooting sections and a lot of
You
poorly
blame
designed
this
filler.
Feels of these people and
Duke
my
Nukem Forever
feels.
doesn't play like Duke Nukem 3D. It
And
plays
my money!
like bad
My
modern
fucking
simulation
money!
with Extended platforming and driving
It's
sequences.
fucking shit.
Thank you to my patrons who keep this channel free. $10 a month patrons get exclusive commentary tracks for these videos. Bye.
Here comes a daredevil. Game over.